AfCFTA itself. So one thing I wanted to say, yesterday we had a discussion around customs unions and the viability of having these regional engagements if you have the customs union, if you recall yesterday. So what the Abuja Treaty is saying is to say everybody else must create, that is the RECs, regional economic communities. They have to create themselves customs unions, right? Could it be possible that these customs unions may not necessarily have similar common external tariffs? I know you had nice food. I also enjoyed my beef, which I'm told I should not take, but I can't help it. I'm a blood O, so blood group O. Yeah, I know it was a heavy lunch. The point is, let's say we have 8 recognized regional economic communities in Africa, 8 of them, right? According to Abuja Treaty, those RECs, each one of them must create a customs union, isn't it? So it means that before we have continental customs union, we should have had 8 regional customs union. In the meantime, there is no legal provision that suggests subsidiarity of the REC treaties to the Abuja Treaty. Can I ask you a question? What is the institutional relationship between the African Union and the regional economic communities? Are the regional economic communities subsidiary entities of the African Union, or they are independent and autonomous bodies? Yes, please.
I think they're independent bodies because, for instance, when we're talking about East African Community or ECOWAS and others, they are operating their issues, or they're doing the issues independently without being intervened by the AU.
Any different view? Okay, it seems everybody agrees with you, and I agree with you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want to say something?
Sorry, Professor.
My take is that they are all under AU. So I believe that whatever that they'll be doing, they have to appreciate some matters that or common understanding to the AU, not going contrary to that because it has power over them.
Are you sure?
This is my take.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Yes, please. It's good to have different views. I should not have said I agree because it may be that we have a better. Go ahead.
I think my opinion is maybe somewhere in between. I also believe they're independent, but the member states are still bound by the African Union, so that's where the connection maybe comes in.
Okay. Yes, please.
She put it even very clear. In the manner of delivering, I think she spoke my mind.
So can I ask you, the two of you, how do you define that dependency? Do they have any obligation to engage the African Union when they create their own instruments, their implementation?
No.
You get the point?
But the member states of these RECs,
The RECs are member states.
the states inside the East African Community, the SADC, they are responsible, they're answerable to the AU. But the community is a community.
You know, for example, do you have a family
A family?
of your own?
Yeah, I do.
You have kids?
Yeah, 2 of them, beautiful kids.
Okay. So, you know, when you are and what do you do currently professionally?
I am a tutorial assistant at University of Iringa.
Okay. When you get to your house, how do they recognize you? As a father or a tutorial assistant?
As a father.
Oh, okay. And when you go to the university, do they say the father of so and so and so?
No,
Tutorial assistant, right?
different personality.
But it's the same person.
Yes.
You see the thing? So here you have a member state. Oh, please go ahead.
I may continue with the analogy, even if he says at home as a father and he gets in a work call of emergency, he would probably still have to answer. And even if he's at work and there's a problem with one of his children, he would probably have to go home and take care of his children.
I understand. My point is, you have a country, let's say you have Kenya, right? Kenya is both, actually it's a very good example here. Is there a relationship between the EAC and COMESA? Those two organizations. Is there any form of a relationship between EAC and COMESA? Okay, let's take Kenya then. Kenya is a partner, they call them partner states. Partner state to the EAC. And they are a member state of COMESA. Kenya is also a state party or a member state of the African Union. Same country, different personalities, belonging to different organizations. Those organizations, they are autonomous organizations with independent legal personality. Are we together? Just like my brother there, he's a father when he's at his house. Even when he's at his house, he can also be a husband. Sorry, I nearly said you can be a wife. He can also be a husband, which has nothing to do with the kids. You see what I mean? He can manifest in different ways. And there may not necessarily be a legal relationship between all these manifestations. Of course, Kenya as a state, it has a legal responsibility to make sure that the commitments that it takes at every different level are actually harmonized and they are consistent. Is that correct? So this is the challenge that we're having in our own African context. Now, I want to give you a different example. The European Union has how many FTAs now? Would you know? Can somebody check online the number of EU's free trade agreements with third countries? We will not go until we have that number. Sorry, 40. 40. So they have signed 40 treaties with other countries. The likelihood of those treaties being conflictual or inconsistent to each other, it is almost non-existent. Because the European Commission, acting on behalf of its member states, has to make sure that there is coherence and consistency when it comes to those treaties that they have signed. And of course, when you say the European Commission, of course, the actual member state level decisions are taken by the European Council. Of course, it goes to the Parliament and all that. So the member states also have a say. You get the point? Why can't we have the same? Whereby the different legal instruments to which Kenya signs onto are actually coherent and non-conflictual. And yet we have you as lawyers. LLB, LLM, LLD, PhD. And all of us, we are studying human rights law, criminal law, family law, you know. Hello. And then we get, we come back and then we are surprised. There's something called international economic law, and people are eating our cake. And we become emotional about it. So I wanted to say, which is the base point, if you have 8 customs unions, already we know that African countries that are members of the WTO, under the WTO, they have different tariffs, commitments that they have committed to, because those commitments are different, meaning you could have Lesotho saying on the phone that's coming from other WTO members, the import duty will be 30%. Tanzania could say, for us, it will be 80%. Then, let's say Cote d'Ivoire could say, for us, it is 15%. Right? So imagine if Cote d'Ivoire, Lesotho, Tanzania are individual customs unions in Africa, representing the 8. On this microphone, how do they then get to have a common external tariff? On this microphone. I hope you get what I'm saying. If you create a customs union, all of you must have exactly the same tariff on this microphone. Are we together? Imagine the thousands of products you have that would have been part and parcel of the tariff concessions you have given other WTO members, and the differences between the commitments that countries have taken. Now, it means that member states, to all these 8 recs of certainty, they have committed differentially at the level of the WTO when it comes to the tariffs applicable to specific products. How do you reconcile that? Remember, customs union has to do with applicable tariffs, or rather, tariffs. Okay. Maybe the beef is working its magic. They have to do with tariffs, customs union, that you commonly going to apply against products coming from third countries. All of you are supposed to have the same. So, if you have a variance, others are 80%, others are 20%, others are at 15%, others at 0%. Assuming that when you look at the applicable tariffs by African countries that are member states of the member states of the WTO, they have tariffs that range from others they apply 100%, others apply 80%, others 50%, others 0%. You see the point? Now, the basis on which you can have a common external tariff is if all members eliminate their duties to 0, because one of the members has taken a commitment that they will impose 0 duties on goods that come from other WTO members. I am not so sure that you understand what I'm saying. If Africa, let's assume, let's take this scenario, and I'll come to you. Let's take this scenario. Let's assume that, let's assume that on average, we say, what is the lowest average duty that African countries have committed to at the World Trade Organization? So you look at all the products we have committed on in terms of the duties applicable to those products, and then you say, what is the lowest average duty? Let's say it is 5%. Let's assume it is 5%. It would mean the Continental Customs Union's common external tariff on average will be 5%. Hello? If the continental average duty would be 5%, and I want to give you a very simple example as to what that could actually mean. If I manufacture this microphone, there's a chip inside, then there's this casing and the different parts that make up this microphone, right? These are costs that as a producer, manufacturer of this microphone, I will build them into this microphone. Then I'll put my profit margin, isn't it? And then I export this microphone to another African country. Let's say Lesotho produces this, and then I export it to Tanzania, right? That's not going to be the only cost attributable to this microphone. There has to be somebody who picks this microphone from the manufacturing plant, and that's a transport cost, isn't it? That transport cost, it is transferred to the overall cost of this microphone, isn't it? I have to hire a customs agent, a broker, who is going to help me clear this particular microphone. That's a cost I added on this microphone. I have to take this microphone for tests by the relevant regulatory body to make sure that it meets the international standards. That's a cost I put on this microphone. Now let's assume from the point of view of the domestic regulatory requirements, I have met them. Now the microphone is about to be exported to another country. But you see already, from the primary cost of manufacturing, I have added other costs. And the cost is going high, isn't it? So then I take it through customs, it is cleared. Maybe it is going by sea or by air, I don't know. I also have to now add more transport costs as part of the cost of this particular microphone, until it reaches the border of a country to which I'm exporting the microphone. And if that at that border, they also have import duty, it is also added as part of the cost of this microphone. Are we together? There are costs that you would know from the onset and that you can control. Your manufacturing cost you will know, and you'll also know how much will be the import duty, right? Now, if you have a country that has inefficient transport systems, it means that the transporting of this microphone is going to be very costly, and ultimately is going to make this microphone more expensive. Are we together? If you have an inefficient regulatory system, whereby for this microphone to be tested, it will take 3 days, 5 days, a month before it is cleared, it means as a business, you are incurring the warehousing costs, and therefore the cost becomes even higher. Are we together? What are we saying? We are saying that if the average common external tariff of a given product is 5%, that does not necessarily mean you will have the capability to have your products that are produced by members of the customs union more competitive vis-a-vis the products from other non-participants to that customs union. Why? Because most countries, for example, like China, it takes a few minutes to clear a product and to transport it. And therefore, their costs of doing trade are very low. So the computing of the costs of exporting this particular mic, it might actually be lower for China. Even though China is going to pay an import duty, it may be lower, yet a member of the customs union who pays no duty on this microphone. Remember, a customs union, you don't have duties amongst yourselves. Because you're a single territory, you can still be beaten by products that come from other countries because of the cost differential. Therefore, the lower your average tariff, the lower it is. It actually means that your market is somehow still open to the rest of the world. And the very basis on which you have a customs union, the objectives of you creating a customs union to drive industrialization, having to force the companies in China to bring their investment into your customs territory because it's cheaper to manufacture in the customs territory than manufacturing them in China, that particular advantage would be eroded if your base average tariff is low. My brother is laughing. I will say it in Swahili, plain English. If you are a manufacturer of a product in China, the reason why you would want to establish a plant, manufacturing plant in East African countries, that customs union, it will simply be because it is more expensive to manufacture that particular product in China and transport it to the East African customs union than it would be if you have that particular firm investing in one of the East African countries. If your import duty is low, there will be no incentive for that company in China to come and invest in the EAC. It's about the cost of doing trade. Are we together? Yes, please. Yes.
Something in my mind. Maybe it's not incentive for the product coming from China, but maybe it's not incentive for the government. I have an example in my mind. Maybe it can elaborate my point. In my country, it's not allowed to agriculture tobacco. So there's a lot of exporter tobacco from countries like Zambia, for example, to Egypt. So if there is no tariffs, and actually the government earn a lot of tariff or like imported duty out of such industry. So if there is no tariffs, so it would be more profitable for the government to bring tobacco from outside the union, custom union, because then there's like conflict of interest between not having tariff or having tariff. And the same, I'm sure there is a lot of products which Egypt export to some African countries, and for Egypt interest to have zero tariffs so it can export more. So how to deal with such conflict of interest between two states, two member states? Because my point, like sometimes there's two conflict of interest. Sometimes you don't want to pay tariffs, but you want to take tariffs in return.
No, it is true. In some instances, countries would want to keep their tariffs high, because when you keep your tariffs high, if you're an African country with low export base and manufacturing base, you depend on that tariff as part of your revenue that goes into the fiscus. So then you would rather keep those tariffs high. Now imagine if you have Egypt having to enter into a customs union with Kenya. And in this case, the tariffs of Egypt applicable to the US, to India, to everybody else would be higher than ordinarily, would be higher than the tariffs that would be applied to Kenya. In fact, there will be no tariff whatsoever applicable to Kenya. Let's assume that you already have that customs union, which is fine because it's just the two of you, and that's perfectly doable. But then, according to Abuja Treaty, that customs union, you are supposed to consolidate it with other 7 customs unions. That is SADC and others, assuming they would have created them per the Abuja Treaty. That product whereby your external tariff is high and therefore you charge high tariffs not only to the European countries, but to other African countries that are not part of the customs union. You have with Kenya, for the country, for other African countries, it has to be zero like Kenya. But the example that I'm giving is, imagine if now Tanzania, it is also in a customs union, maybe with Malawi. The same product that you are charging non-customs union members like the US a high tariff, maybe between Tanzania and Malawi, that product, the duty applicable to it is 5%, meaning they charge 5% to US, to China, and everybody else. But maybe your level of duty is 80%. Now, if the two of you were to create a customs union, how is that going to work? Is Tanzania and, sorry, was it Kenya and Malawi? Sorry. Tanzania and Malawi, right? Would they prefer, remember they have their own common external tariff, right? Would they prefer to increase their common external tariff to 80% to be consistent with your common external tariff, the one that you have with Kenya, or there will be a demand on you to reduce it to the level of Tanzania? I wish they had where I could write. So the first example, so let's say Egypt and Kenya enter into a customs union. Egypt and Kenya, the duty applicable to this microphone will be zero. So if they are manufacturers of this microphone in Kenya or Egypt, in your customs, you're not going to impose any duty. However, to countries that are not members of this customs union, the tariff, let's say, at the WTO that you have taken is 80% of the value of the microphone. So meaning, whether you are an African country or you are a non-African country, you pay 80%. Then we have Kenya and Malawi. So, I beg your pardon. Tanzania and Malawi, right? Same microphone. In their arrangement, the duty applicable to this microphone, it is 5%. Again, for non-members to the customs union. We are together, right? Now, according to Abuja Treaty, these two customs unions have to be merged into one. The problem is the duty that the Kenyan and Egypt customs union, the duty applicable here is 80%. But for Tanzania and Malawi, it is 5%. But you're supposed to have one. How do you come to that one? No, I understand. The complication, and this is where the complication comes. Imagine if that common external tariff that Tanzania and Malawi have, it is based on the commitment of those countries at the WTO, what we call the bound rate. You know that once the two countries at the WTO have committed to 5%, they cannot increase it. So that means Egypt and Kenya will have to reduce to the level of Tanzania. But is it economically feasible? Imagine if you have businesses in Egypt and in Kenya that manufacture this particular microphone, and the 80% duty has been protecting them from competition. So, if you reduce your duties to 5% to a Chinese, exactly. Are we together? So, I like these mental gymnastics. I call them mental gymnastics because there is this idea of thinking about economic integration from a theoretical point of view. What Bella Balasa told us. Do a free trade area, do a customs union, do a common market, do a monetary union or economic union. And hoping that the reality can conform to the theory. But actually, it is much more complex than what the reality dictates. Now, I want to give you a real example as to why this is going to be very difficult for Africa to have. I wish I could not say this, because I'm supposed to be very hopeful, Pan-Africanist, my buye Africa, as we say in the South, I'm supposed to be that. But the reality is, you take a country like Liberia, Ethiopia, and Somalia, but in particular Liberia. Liberia negotiated its accession to the World Trade Organization. I was in Geneva at the time when they negotiated to accede to become the members of the WTO. Boy, those guys, they took very low duties. Very low duties. When you accede, you don't negotiate, you are told how low you should reduce your duties. Very low duties. Now, anybody who would be in a customs union with Liberia, their common external tariff will be extremely low. So, whether the continent will manage from a technical point of view, not from an emotional point of view, from a technical point of view, whether we will manage to even meet this requirement of Abuja Treaty. Remember, the AfCFTA itself, one of its objectives is to facilitate the creation of Continental Customs Union. Remember that? Whether it is technically feasible, you can tell the war that African countries are going to have, because most of us, we depend on tariff revenues to fund the government programs, health, education. So the best way in which, the best and the easiest way for governments to collect money is the Tanzania Revenue Authority. When we import cars and all of that, the Tanzanian Revenue Authority would ensure that they gather the duties. You get the duties at the point of entry. And then you send it to the Ministry of Finance, they allocate it to different ministries, and that's how the governments function. Now, if then you reduce those import duties to 0 or to 5%, to 10% because of Liberia, how are you going to be able to get that money? Hello? Sorry. Yeah, I see. Don't worry, I'll give you a moment. I see the hand is hot. You want to say something? Maybe let me give it to you. So, what I'm trying to say is, these things are easier said than done. Are we together?
Thank you, Professor. My comment is that, first of all, I concur with you that this cannot be implemented in Africa. Because in 1999, when the late President Honorable Benjamin William Mkapa was announcing that Tanzania has to withdraw from COMESA, he said that it will be a bad thing to accept zero external tariff in Tanzania, while Tanzania depends much on those external tariffs, particularly from countries which are landlocked countries such as Zambia, Malawi, Congo, and others. So he said that Tanzania cannot proceed with COMESA because it will victimize its economy. So the only solution was to withdraw from that particular, to withdraw from COMESA. The same was stressed by the Minister of Industry and Trade, Idi Simba, who said that COMESA will no longer benefit Tanzania. So the only solution that you have to opt is to withdraw, because Tanzania will be critically, economically victimized. So I concur with your point, and that was you wanted to stress on. Thank you.
I get you, but there's a nuance there, that I want to clarify. There is no problem in African countries opening up markets to each other. You know why? Because they don't produce. So nothing will proceed from Zambia into Tanzania and displace businesses. Tanzania doesn't get its revenues from the products from Zambia. You get the point? The revenues, you get them from other third countries, non-African. That's where you get cars. You import the car. How much is the duty for importation of cars into Tanzania? It's extremely high. You get the point? Where does that money go? It goes to fund the government programs. It's very high duty. In some countries like Zimbabwe, it's 100% of the value of that particular car. Used car, you know. You get the point? So if you then tell Zimbabwe to say, reduce the duties for cars in the case of Tanzania, will Zimbabwe have a problem with that? You don't produce cars, so you see the point? You don't produce cars. There will not be a problem. The problem will arise if you say Tanzania under the World Trade Organization has an import duty on cars at the level of 5%. And because you're entering into a customs union with Zimbabwe, you want Zimbabwe now to move from 100% to 5%. So, for whom are you opening up the market of Tanzania? For Tanzania? Or you're actually opening it up for third countries? So, the issue of the common external tariff, if we were to consolidate all the 8 customs union into one, may inadvertently have the effect of opening up the African market to third countries. Believe me, if I were to say this to the member states, I will not say what I'm saying to you. Because I will be like a traitor. Because people are following Balasa, Bella Balasa, Bella Balasa, FTA, Customs Union, Common Market, Economic Union. That's what they're following. So you can see the complexity concerning the establishment of the African Customs Union. Now, I want to give you the only way out, yet that way out is impossible. So I'm not giving you a solution. I'm going to give you a legalistic way out. The WTO Article 28 of that agreement, it provides an opportunity for countries to renegotiate their commitments. Meaning, you can negotiate that if you have set out a tariff at 5%, you can negotiate that it goes up high to 80% like Egypt. But that is theoretical. No member of the WTO will allow you to do that. Countries try to do that. For example, Rwanda, anybody from Rwanda? There's nobody from Rwanda. Yeah. My sister from Rwanda. So, Rwanda joins the EAC, right? And when Rwanda joined the EAC, they found out that there are certain products of which the duties, what we call MFN, I don't want to be very legal, terminology like, what we call MFN duties, bound duties. There are duties that you had committed at the WTO and in those products, and they were very low. However, because you are joining an existing customs union, the duties in the customs union of the EAC were higher than the duties that Rwanda had committed to under the WTO. So the analogy here is Rwanda wants to join the EAC. Rwanda is a member of the WTO. Rwanda has already made a commitment on this microphone. Let's say the duties that they committed to on this microphone under the WTO is 5%. But in the EAC common external tariff, it is 20%. So the same example that we've been going through. So the members of the EAC were not willing to reduce the common external tariff on the microphone from 20% to 5% so that there is consistency of the EAC common external tariff, and also they can cater for Rwanda's request. They said, no, we cannot. So the only option that Rwanda had was to invoke Article 28 of the WTO agreement to go and try to renegotiate that this microphone, their duty rate be increased, MFN duty rate, from 5% to 20% of the EAC. They said, hell no. It will never happen. If you do that, if you open up that door, every other member is going to come to try to renegotiate their commitments, and therefore you are going to increase barriers against trade, which is against the objectives of the WTO. Now, that provision says, well, you can negotiate, but you be also prepared to give compensation. Hello? Meaning it is possible for the WTO members to say, you want to join the customs union? How far do you want to increase this thing? Up to 20%? Well, very good. Let's increase up to 20%, but open up that other sector, reduce from this one to here. So you see, it's a game of dominoes. No, not dominoes. What is this thing where the different heads are, what do you call that game? Hey, guacamole. Yeah, it's like guacamole. You think you're done with this one, another one emerges from the other side. Because if then they say, we give you the possibility to cover this at I beg your pardon, my knee. You are to cover this at 20%, then they'll say, but that other product, can you reduce it from 100 to 0? And still, that will not be commensurate with the common external tariff. Are we together? Yes, please say. That's why it's economic law, because there's economics in the law. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Professor. I was thinking on myself when our fathers were drafting these laws.
Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't they thought of the impossibility of practicability of what you are saying exactly?
Yeah.
That's number one. And secondly, maybe we African states don't understand the exactly significance of what we have been discussing here since morning. And I've been thinking also maybe it's different levels in terms of economy, meaning the currency value of these African countries is what makes all these obstacles arising. And maybe because of the slowest steps that we are trying to carry, for example, in East Africa, creating a common currency, maybe we'll create a way forward some years to come on these matters. That is what was transpiring into my mind.
No, thanks a lot for what you've said. I feel like a father now. Like old, I tell people when I went to Geneva, I was very handsome because I had my full hairline. And by the time I left, man, my hair, I tried to shave, but this thing is just popping, But they call it PhD. They call it PhD. Poor hair distribution. Right? Maybe I need to go to Turkey and they plug in a few hairs. No, you make me feel old, man. Yes, please. Oh, permanent hair damage. There's another one. Yeah. So, to be honest with you, I always try to the best of my abilities to think through why is it that we're in this predicament. And my thinking goes to my own country, I always reflect in the mid-2000s. So I'm old, no? In the mid-2000s, I had the privilege of engaging in the economic partnership agreements negotiations with the European Union. I was very young, probably your age or younger, but it was a privilege. And I was not, I was really literally accompanying the old men, the directors who were the ones doing the talking. So I was learning, we were trained in that way. And when I reflect on the education that the people who were involved in those negotiations had, and my overall experiences in those negotiations, I can understand why we are in this predicament. So I'm talking real things as to what happens. So at the level of education, I don't mean people didn't go to the university, no. We had folks, in my time, back then, if you had a master's, everybody in the city will know that you have a master's degree. Like, I don't know, you are educated. The level of respect, even at the village, they will sing for you if you have a master's degree back then. These guys, if you had the first degree, you are top of the range as well. Back then, because there are so few people who had access to that quality education. Back then. So we are with these guys. None of them had a master's degree, by the way. So imagine if you had, and they're economists. So they did their first year degree, so they have the first degree in economics. You have somebody who's a director of trade going to negotiate a legal instrument with the lawyers from the European Union. You see the trend? The capability. Even today, we don't have that capacity because our trade agreements are still negotiated by economists. Until today. If I were to ask you, in Tanzania, how many trade lawyers do you have in the Ministry of Trade? How many trade lawyers do you have? Not investment, trade lawyers. In the Attorney General's office, how many trade lawyers do you have in the Parliament? You get, it's a capacity issue, according to me. And we still don't have that appreciable level of capacity in the continent. We don't. So it's very difficult. So those, our fathers, they tried the best they could, but our fathers really were struggling. I can believe me, with no prejudice to the colleagues from the EU. So we are in these negotiations, and we say, no, actually, if we open up the market for Europe, they're going to wipe out everything. They said, no, we are going to carry out a study. So we said, yes, we need the evidence from the study, right? So within few weeks, the study was out. And the study was an econometric study. And the study showed two concepts that they were used. I studied international trade policy. I did a little bit of trade economics, though I'm like an economist. No, I'm not. The study said, if Africa, it was SADC at that stage, enters into trade negotiations with Europe, there is what in economics they call trade creation. Two concepts, trade diversion and trade creation. Then when they presented that thing, it showed that Africa, SADC countries are going to have huge market opportunities in the European market. The truth of the matter is we did not even have industries in those areas of which we've been told you're going to have huge, and they put numbers there. You take it to your minister. So what's the problem? We're going to go into the European market. The investors are going to come. You understand the level of incapacity, the shallowness of the assessment, and the way in which we make decisions based on the shallow understanding of what is at stake. Now you come here, this is why now we're talking about the customs unions. You see that? It's another layer. Beyond your commitments at the WTO, you have opened up over 80% of your market to European Union, and the goods are zero rated. Over 80%. So you are creating a customs union, right? Already some countries have opened up the market to EU, 0% of 80% of the products. Zero. Hello? I don't know if you can hear me. Zero. And then you have the 8 customs unions that are supposed to have a common external tariff. So are you saying that the countries that are parties to EPA, Economic Partnership Free Trade Agreement, whose 80% of products will be at zero, they will demand that within the context of the African Customs Union, that the common external tariff for 80% of the products should be zero? So does it mean the African Customs Union, it is actually going to serve to open up African market to the rest of the world? Because that common external tariff applies to everybody in the world. I think I should write a paper on this and partner with an economist. Hello. Our market is open. Today, China is seeking to enter into bilateral arrangements with countries. Bilateral. Again, you're going to open up your market. You're going to put it down at zero. Okay. I'll repeat that. China has opened up its market to Africa, and it said Africa can export anything and everything to China at zero rate. But the catch is, once you start engaging in that, you'll also have a free trade agreement with China where you're going to open up the market for China. Now, please tell me, if already, has anybody gone to, what do you call this place, this 4-story supermarket? What do you call it? What's this place? Anybody from Tanzania, from Arusha here? Mzee, you are here from Arusha? You know, there is a market at Phillips. Is it Phillips? That Phillips Road, the road to the airport. There is a big supermarket there. You know, when you go in there, you'll find everything you want, from steel, some quality products in there, all from China. How can, and those products are cheaper than what you'll find anywhere else in the market. In fact, they have killed small businesses of people who used to go to China around that place and then say, you know that, right? What do you call that place? Home market, yeah, home market. Now, please tell me, if China can beat your tariffs, your customs unions, without you having any trade agreement with them, what more when you have a trade agreement with them? How are you going to create a continental customs union in view of all the facts? Bad Friday. But don't worry, for those of you who drink, you'll wash it down later tonight. I think it is important for us to understand, and I don't think that our policymakers ever have discussed these matters. And therefore our policy making is not well informed. I wanted to say one last thing so that I can piss you off, so that you get more angry of the fathers, against the fathers. Most economic communities yes, I'll say this. Most regional economic communities are not autonomous. They don't create their policies. They are driven by external parties. I work in the AfCFTA Secretariat. One of my responsibilities is partnerships. So you can imagine how many entities I meet. So I'm telling you the reality now. Things that I meet in my day-to-day work. I have partners who come and they tell me, we have a $200,000, we have $500,000, we have $1 million that we can give to you. My government has endorsed this program. I said, really? Can I set out what I want? He said, no. We did studies and we know what this money should be used for. Oh, really? Yes. Share the study with me. Actually, these are the sectors of our interest. So if you take my money, it better be spent on this. And then you think, do I take this money? I don't have money. Do I take it? Then you say, okay, maybe we can find a way to include my things in there. You go back to them. Then they tell you, we are going to recruit the consultants. Say, no, but I have my own procurement rules. Can't you bring the money to me? And then say, no. We will do all that ourselves. It's going to be a transparent process. As if I haven't been a diplomat for more than 20 years. And knowing exactly what happens. Hello? That's why we are one of the people that are not the darling to the development partners, because with what we know, what I know, what my boss knows, there is no way in hell we are going to sell the continent, or at least myself. Get the point? Yes. So this is what happens. So a number of these legal instruments that have been created, the same analogy of our fathers, also the RECs do not have the competences. They rely on experts from everywhere else in the world. And therefore the shaping of the continental policy, largely it is not by continental people. The AfCFTA, I can tell you that, I know there were other people who were not from the continent. We tried to fight some of those, but at least we were involved in the drafting of this thing. Are we together? Yeah. So we have these realities that go into the shaping of the trade agreements. Believe me, if I was from those countries, like I told you, I would do the same thing. I will do the same thing. I would like us to, and we are almost done. Let's see. I have, 2 more slides left of things that I want to talk about. I would like us to open the AfCFTA agreement that I sent on the WhatsApp group. Let me open mine, and we go to Article 19, please. So not Article 19. What article is it? Oh, I think. Yeah, Article 19. Let me see if I can find it. Does anybody have Article 19? Or agreement establishing the AfCFTA. Article 19. Can I read it out for you? Article 19, conflict and inconsistency with regional agreements. Yours truly here drafted this article. You know? And it's one of the articles, I look at it and I feel so proud. Together with my colleague, Professor Milako. Good gentleman. in the event of any conflict and inconsistency between this agreement, meaning the AfCFTA agreement, and any regional agreement, this agreement shall prevail to the extent of the specific inconsistency, except as otherwise provided in this agreement. Hello. Then, first let's discuss that. If there is an inconsistency between the AfCFTA and the EAC treaty, the AfCFTA will prevail. That's fair, no? It's a conflict of law clause. At what level does it apply? It applies at the level of the member state. There is nothing in here that says, EAC, go and change your treaty. No. As we established, we don't have this organizational or treaty-to-treaty relationship, because these treaties are indivisible or indivisibly independent of each other. But the member states have taken the commitment. So if you say that where a country that is a member of the EAC has taken a given commitment, and that commitment conflicts with its commitment under the AfCFTA, therefore the AfCFTA treaty has to prevail, then what would be the standing of that country when it comes to its commitments to parties to the EAC treaty? Hello? I don't know if you get what I'm saying. You see the complication? You can sort out your AfCFTA issues. But you may, in sorting out your AfCFTA issues, you may be breaching your commitments under the EAC. Then what happens? What recourse do you have? We thought when we came up with that particular provision, it will incentivize the regional economic communities to look at their instruments, because these are the same member states, and then make sure that whatever amendments that need to be effected are effected to bring them in conformity to the EAC. So we are trying to create a link between these treaties, but leaving the responsibility to the member states to do it themselves, because in the African Union, we do not have the legal umbilical cord between the AfCFTA in this case and the regional economic communities treaties. But we were thinking in drafting that language, we were trying to solve and bring into effect, remember one of the principles, which is to deal with overlapping treaties and what have you. We were trying to deal with that particular issue of overlapping and conflicting obligations. But if you really deeply think about it, and you try to apply it to different sectoral agreements, standards, trade facilitation, you can see that this is a very deep provision. And therefore, I believe in the future there will be a high volume of jurisprudence that will come out of this particular provision. Because a country will say, well, your measures are not consistent with the AfCFTA. No, my measures are consistent with the EAC. Well, Article 19 says the AfCFTA will prevail in the case of conflicts or inconsistency. So I think that there's a lot of PhD thesis that will be written on this particular provision alone. That's why I was saying to you, in advancing this particular provision, we are having this assessment that we are trying to carry out. But let's not go ahead of ourselves and read the second paragraph. It says, that is para 2. Notwithstanding provisions of paragraph 1 of this article, that is, the notion that the AfCFTA will prevail in the case of inconsistency and conflicts. Notwithstanding that, state parties that are members of other regional economic communities, regional trading arrangements, and customs unions, which have attained amongst themselves higher levels of regional integration than under this agreement, shall maintain such higher levels amongst themselves. What this means is that you cannot say that because there is higher level of liberalization, let's use a simple example on tariffs. Let's assume, the microphone again is our choice example. Under the EAC, the duty is 0, right? And it's applicable immediately. Under the AfCFTA, I don't know, someone can put, it's supposed to be 0, of course, but let's say they put it in what we call the exclusion list. And then exclusion list meaning you will not liberalize that particular sector. Products that are under the exclusion list, it means they're immune from liberalization. And that would, according to the current modalities of the AfCFTA, that would be 3% of all products you're trading. You cannot say, no, this particular product will now be at 3%. You see the point? You can't. Because you have attained a higher level of liberalization. Or you cannot claim and go back and say, because of my commitments under the EAC, I want to increase this up to 3%. No, you can't. So this is a conflict of laws clause that we are having, and we may not go into the details, but if you were to technically go into specific provisions, a trade, because this does not only apply to trade in goods, it applies to trade in services, it applies to competition and everything. This can be a mess in terms of its scope of application and what it would mean when it comes to the different legal instruments we have and the inconsistencies we have in there. So in any case, the AfCFTA will prevail. That's the principle under that. I feel like maybe that's the last. I looked at the other slides and there are a lot of things there, but I feel like the key message that I wanted to raise with you, hopefully this is legal enough. I always don't consider myself a legal person, but I hope, because I really love being practical about things, because I'm one of those who believe. And as I said, the first day of our engagement, I really believe this that we've been taught at law school, these doctrines, these dogmas, and all of these principles at law that we've learned, they are always contextual. And unless you understand the context within which certain provisions were created, principles they are not like the 10 commandments of Moses. They are not like the 10 commandments. Moses found them at the mountain somewhere, and then he found the 10. No, they are not from heaven. It's human beings. And when they come up with these principles, they were addressing a certain challenge or problem or an opportunity. And they seek for the application of that universally to everybody. It doesn't matter if it is human rights law today in the area of international trade. The US is talking about the labor to say that, so you've done everything you can. Then they say, we are going to shut down the market to you because you are having low labor standards. Oh, we thought that it's an advantage to have low minimum wage because it cuts the cost of production. But because they have high, okay, it's not higher than Europe, of course, as you know, but relatively compared to Africa, the minimum wage is quite high. So they lower your minimum wage against their minimum wage. They're saying, no, it's more like a slave labor. You are abusing the people who work in the factories, maybe monthly, earning 100,000 Tanzanian shillings. Say, no, 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 no. They must get to a level comparable to us. Now, rules are being created around the concept of minimum wage that would be payable to employees working in the industries. International, now it becomes international law now. Can you imagine that? I hope that you can understand this. And my colleagues from the US, this is how we look at the world. And by the way, I'll repeat the same thing. If I was the US, I would do the same. Because you have to look into areas that can get you to be competitive. The issue of low wages from the drawn from the developing countries, it's a disincentive to the competitiveness of the US. So it's a problem. So Mexico. I'll close with this so that maybe we can appreciate what I'm saying. The US has the US, Mexico, and Canada trade agreement, USMCA. And there's a good friend of mine who is now in the USTR. He's one of the big bosses there. The other day, I asked him, can you share with me your WhatsApp? He said to me, Makong, we're not allowed to have the WhatsApps. So he gave me his card with his official cell phone number. The guy needs security clearance to talk to me. No, for real. He needs security clearance to talk to. Now I'm a foreign agent. This is the guy we had the WTO together. We used to have, there's a restaurant, we used to chop food there. Now I'm a foreign agent. And he can get into trouble if he happens to have certain conversations with me. Right? You understand how it works, right? When you reach a certain level. Yeah. Now, so I asked him a couple of years ago, not too many years ago, probably, let's say 4 years ago. I was still here in it. So the US enters into the negotiations with Canada and Mexico. Then that was the first of Trump's presidency. And I'm watching the news. You know, DSTV, my DSTV was out, so. Then I happened to cross over to CGTN. It was free. And guess what? I was so lucky. The minister of Mexico is speaking to say, yes, we accept this particular proposal of the US, where in the auto sector, the US, not in Canada, but in Mexico, they demanded that Mexico increases the minimum wage in the auto sector. I want you to think about that. You go to your parliament passes laws and says, this is the minimum wage. Hello? This is the minimum wage. Another country comes and says, no, increase it. And the expectation was, as Mexico increases the minimum wage, then the Rust Belt, the factories in Mexico, the automaker making manufacturers in Mexico, will go back into Detroit and all these other cities that had lost competitiveness in the auto sector to Mexico. Are we together? It's about competitiveness. So, where is the law? What do you call the law? Because there's context. Now we have a precedent that in trade agreements, and now that's the precedent that the US has, they negotiate any trade agreement with anybody in the auto sector, minimum wage. You see how it becomes now the standard. They will be referring to you as our fathers, where we're our fathers. Because now, in the next 20 years, I don't know whether some of us will be here, in the next 20, I don't know, 40 years, it will be a standard to say you can negotiate minimum wage in trade agreements. You see what they say, but where were they? The last thing, in what we call rules of origin, they discovered that Mexico was using inputs in the auto sector from Thailand and China and other countries. And it was making the auto sector more profitable and viable in Mexico. And of course, these car units are exported into the US because it's the biggest consumer of motor vehicles in the world. So they said, well, we must make sure that we increase the stringency with which you'd be allowed to source these inputs from other third countries. And they created rules, what we call rules of origin, that are stringent to disincentivize Mexico from sourcing some of the products from China, Thailand, all those countries in Asia, South Korea, and all of that. Are we together? So it is about competitiveness. So this is what I want to leave you with. The rules in trade, in economic policy making, in investment, it is about competitiveness. It is about how do you ensure that your businesses remain competitive. Everything else, you throw it out of the window. Believe me, there's going to be another lecturer who will talk to you. They will say the opposite. That's what I love about academia. But this is something, the sword. I stand by and I will fall on this sword. So with that, I thank you very much.
Some more flowers, please. Let us give him a standing ovation, please. Now I'm going to teach you how you used to clap. I'm going to show you how you used to clap when we were in secondary school. We are going to clap for him with a certain style. We used to clap as follows. We used to clap like this. Tripartite. Tripartite. So, Prof, my question for you, actually I have two. The first one is that there is this school of thought that argues that these RECs were seen as building blocks towards what AfCFTA is trying to, the AfCFTA is trying to achieve today. Now, based on this philosophy, would you say that the building blocks were well shaped enough to start building this AfCFTA? Because if the building blocks are not well shaped, I think then this building, and you are part of the architectures, maybe this building might not take the shape that we hope for. And then, prior to AfCFTA, there was this, the sister organization which tried to, which collapsed, I've forgotten the name, but you know, it wasn't like exactly after, but then it tried to unite Africa in this sense, in terms of trade, but it didn't last long. That's the reason why you came up with this. So the question is, why do you think this one is going to work if the previous one failed in a very fantastic way, for lack of a better term? And the third question is, you are aware of price transferring? Is that a right term? Is it price transferring, they call it? And the African countries are victims of that, which I find it's cheating and it should be a crime. Zambia, where I come from, is the biggest victim of that. So what is your office doing about it to protect African businesses or African states and corporations from suffering from this price transferring? Thank you. Other questions can follow, then Prof will take them and is going to incorporate many things. Any other questions? Okay, yeah.
Prof, yeah, mine is maybe a bit simplistic, but over the many years you've worked as a diplomat for your country in Geneva and now at the Secretariat in Accra. We are a very young and hopeful continent. Do you see a lot of progress towards a lot of these aspirations that we have, or are they cycles of, you know, similar problems that we've been seeing over the past 10, 20 years?
Thank you very much for these well thought out questions. And, I think, this proverb, an African, that says, we cross the river by feeling the stones. I am a city boy. I was born in the city, lived in the city. But we used to go to the rural areas over the school holidays. And in the mountains, I come from a mountainous country. So I know what it means to cross the river by feeling the stones. You take your step, and then if the stone is solid enough, you take another one, just like that. This is how the continent is moving when it comes to the issue of continental integration. So I'm speaking about the question that you raised about the building blocks. Let me be blunt about this issue. And I speak in my personal capacity. In the World Trade Organization, it is said to be a member-driven organization. And true to that word, it is indeed, I experienced what it means to be a member-driven organization. Literally. The member states submit their written proposals, and those proposals will be negotiated, consolidated until we have a legal instrument from member states. Here, in this continent, most proposals and legal instruments are drafted by consultants. So I will not, if you've been, has anybody been a consultant? I'm sure some of us have been consultants before. I had a student, and I'll not mention a rec he worked for. He was recruited as a consultant. I was working here in Tanzania. And he said to me, Mwalimu, I got this thing, I'll be in this particular city for the coming 12 months. And he was asked to undertake an assessment of the needs of that region. And God help me, I don't disclose as I speak. He did the assessment, and he gave me the terms of reference, and I sat with him. I normally do things for free, So I sat with him, helped him. We came up with the terms of reference, and I beg your pardon, the questionnaires, and all of that, and it was to an interview instruments, and he was to go to the field. And he went, and he was to come up with 5 key critical sectors for that region. So he did the assessment, sent me a draft, said, yeah, this looks good, and he had all the interviews and the data was there. So I said, no, this is good. I think this is very good research. So he submitted. And then he calls me 11 p.m. I'll not forget. He says, Prof, I said, hey, what's going on? I had a problem. The meeting just ended now. At 11, yes, the meeting just ended. He was hired by one of the development partners I will not mention. So what's the problem? You should be happy. Said, no. We identified the 5 sectors. And one of the sectors is dairy. And this is an interest of the countries I went to. I was told that whenever I see the word dairy, I should remove dairy and put leather. One of our own, who is a Pan-Africanist, seeking to determine what are the interests of our countries, having carried out, a very smart guy, having carried out the research, submitting the empirical research, he's been told remove that sector, meaning even the people that he would have interviewed, everything he had to calibrate that into removing dairy and putting insect leather. Now, the issue there is, what do? You think about Africa, from Cape to Cairo, you think about your family, and then you say, do I put dairy or do I keep dairy or do I put leather? And he was 4 months into his contract, a year-long contract. He says, Prof, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I go for my family. So he had to replace dairy with leather. That document was adopted by the ministers of that particular regional economic community. I'm giving you a real thing. That's why sorry. To an extent that I can, I don't use consultants. Because I know how dirty it is out there. I try my team to say, do it yourself. Right now, this methodology I was telling you about, I'm doing it myself. Every Friday, 6 a.m. Accra time, I'm awake, Thursday and Friday, taking AI lesson, not this thing of asking questions. No. A real thing, teaching this thing, the skills. Because I gotta do it myself. Because I don't now trust anybody out there, including some of our people. Because I don't know. I have so many experiences of how our policy prerogatives can be undermined along the way. So, is the foundation strong enough, the building blocks? Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. But I think that there is a way in which, when the structural integrity is not very much intact, we can bring some masons who can come and, correct it. And I think we are on that path of the correction of the structural integrity. Are we going to be in this thing forever? I don't know. Are we all of the same mind? Do we have the same understanding? Certainly not. It's different exposures that we've gotten. Certainly, I know myself where I stand on these matters, and I try my level best. And I hope, so help me God, I never get to come to a position of my student who had to choose between his family or the continent. I hope. It has not happened to me so far, and I hope it doesn't happen. Now, if I was that development partner, would I have done the same thing? Please answer me. Yes, I would have done that. Because it's economic interests. You have companies that are lined up, and because the East African community and also the Central Africa, East Africa, not East African community, East Africa and Central Africa, they have the largest stock of livestock. So there's abundance of leather there, and what others are trying to do is to commoditize leather, so that leather ultimately is traded the same way diamonds and gold are traded, whereby, or energy products are traded, whereby the prices of leather are set by international markets and not by the producers. That's what they're trying to do. It's a very important commodity. So I hope I try to answer you in a controversial way, as I always try to do. That's what I would say to the issue of building blocks. And then I really think that we have to give the AfCFTA a chance. And a big chunk of the AfCFTA, it's same old, same old. But there are also some good things that I think the Secretary General has been pushing. And there's a pushback against these things. He's introduced the issue of these payments, PAPs. He's introduced the issue of value chains. So we have an agenda of value chains. We have created what we call agriculture action plan, agri-action plan, where we as a secretariat analyze the different supply chains in specific products across the continent, and we are trying to find a way in which there can be value addition in those, like cotton, for example, like cashew nuts, for example. Things that are tangible, that our people that are said to be poor are producing. It cannot be that this agreement would only attach to those or among us who have the money, the big companies. So that work has been done, and the ministers in July adopted the agri-action plan that outlines those particular value chains. So we are trying to make sure that the AfCFTA is not a classical trade agreement that speaks to matters of compliance and less of productivity. So we are bringing in the issue of productive capacity to link the implementation of rules to the actual tradable products. So this is what we're trying to do. And also we have, for example, a project we are doing here in Tanzania, a multi-million-dollar project in the area of fisheries with the government of Tanzania in Zanzibar, to make sure that the small-scale producers, the women who get the fish and all that, you know, they are able to have their fish go to international market. At the least, it can be sold at competitive rates to the African countries. So we are trying to also move in that direction as a different approach to what we've been doing over the years. The other questions that, another question that you raised about transfer pricing, unfortunately, we don't deal with the finance world, which is one of the legs, because you have trade, you have monetary policy, and then you have finance. This is a finance issue. And therefore, we as the Secretariat, we don't have the mandate over this matter. It is one of those issues that can get you to lose your life, and I have some friends. No, for real, it's very emotional to me, because I have a friend who was an Oxford graduate who did the work, and I'll not mention the name, in this area. He lost his life. He did. Because he used to come and teach at my university. He did a triangulation of the reporting of different minerals from the home countries and the buying markets. And he found a huge disparity in terms of the numbers. And he was killed for that. Yes. You know, we are closing, we cannot take hands, no? I'm just giving you the reality of how the world works. I just want you to appreciate that this is how there are things, and he told me, and he touched the minerals, he touched oil and gas.
You know, for a change to happen, there are some people who has to. I think it's time now Africa should not be scared of dying. I am saying from my perspective, from what I'm doing in my office, I've chosen. That's why you see even me, I'm living my life. I don't like how what. I live my life because of that. So some people need to take courage. And I know God will protect, because there are people who have done that. So wherever they have gone, someone else has to take and go forward. Because if this, we once had a training of remember, one of the person who was in the negotiation team, she just said we were put under pressure to do everything like that. A simple answer to such what is I mean the outcome or the result that will be. We were like, everyone in the room, we were like, oh, You just reply like that. We were under pressure. And then you negotiate things that will bind the countries for many years to come because of political reasons. What if you said, I won't do that, I'm sick? This is the sacrifice that I'm speaking. So people have to take courage, and we all have to die one day.
No, thanks for that. I have my own stories, I don't know whether I'm allowed to share them. I can share with you a story I have, and this happened to me. And to be frank with you, of course, anyone's day of departure is appointed, and only the Maker knows how and when that would happen. So, what I would really wish for us to capture, I know we talk the law, I know, which is what our sister here is saying, but there are economic interests, and those economic interests can be so strong that they trump what you call the law. In fact, we end up codifying the very same things that otherwise, given a chance, would have said no to. In my case, it's not a big issue, and thank God I'm not working on minerals and those things, because I believe probably I will not be here. I'm sure the way you understand, the way my thinking is, I don't think I'll be here. So we were negotiating the WTO agreement on trade facilitation. And I was the chief negotiator of the African countries. So we go in there, and our position as Africa was, no, we don't want this agreement. What we want is for you to review the agreements you did amongst yourselves in 1947, 45. We want you to go and review that so that they reflect our legitimate economic interests as African countries. So we were pushing back against that agreement. I don't know, for some of you here in Tanzania, most people are here are young. You may not know a gentleman by the name Julius Saronga. He was the chief negotiator of the LDCs, least developed countries. I was for the whole of Africa. So we go into the meetings. There's open meetings, everybody in there, but the real meetings are small group meetings. Not where, when people say they're going to conference and negotiate, no, that's not negotiations. Negotiations happen in small groups. I was telling the colleagues I was with over the table that would sit with the Minister of Trade of the US and all these different countries there. Privilege. You'd think so. So we push our positions against this. The next thing, I get a call. I'm from Foreign Affairs, I was not working from Trade. I get a call from my Minister of Trade, of Foreign Affairs, sorry. And I'm surprised because normally the call would go to my ambassador, not me. He calls me directly. He says to me, are you at a place where you can talk? I said, of course, Honorable Minister. I left my meeting. Already I'm sweating. I don't know what's going on. I had just been in Geneva, I think it was my third or my fourth year, something like that. And we know when you get a call from the minister, you have to pack your bags and go home. Imagine I leave the salary I was getting there, going back to Lesotho now to go and earn $400. I'm already wondering what's going to happen to me. You have a few debts here and there. You're trying to make things work, paying installments here and there. I'm sweating there. The sweating that afterwards, the body just wants to remove everything inside. I said, this guy. So he then says to me, I received, I'll not mention the name of that country because someone from that country is in here. I received a letter from this country, blah, 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 blah. It has your name in it. Explain yourself. Explain yourself. You know, the first 2 sentences I tried, I think I was just biting my tongue. Then he says, my son, calm down. Just explain yourself. I recollected myself, say, Honorable Minister, we as Lesotho, we serve as the chief negotiators of African countries. On this matter, on trade facilitation, you know, that teacher part of me came back now. On this matter on trade facilitation, this is what the developed countries are asking us. And I told him, we as Lesotho, our position is aligned to the position of the developed countries. And I said, Honorable Minister, because our problem is not the developed countries. At the time, our problem was our neighbor. Our neighbor, they would change the customs regulations as and when they want and create difficulties for our business people. But we don't have an opportunity to say that because we have to toe the African position. So I said, if anything, we go along with the position of the developed countries, not because we support them, but because this will solve our problem when it comes to our neighbor. That's what I said. And however, the position of African countries, which had been endorsed by our ministers, I used to write the declarations adopted by the African Union, and the Assembly, which has been adopted by the Assembly, is that we would not agree on trade facilitation until matters on agriculture have been resolved. Because as we speak today, the developed countries, thanks to the negotiations of the GATT, they have given themselves a huge outlay of subsidies. They can offer billions of subsidies to their farmers, and we are not allowed to offer the subsidies to our farmers. We are saying that that needs to be corrected because it's unfair, which is why it is easy for you to have beef from Brazil. You can have beef from the US, beef from the European Union, beef from New Zealand. Look at thousands of miles that these products have to travel, but they will beat your products that has been produced by your neighbor next door. Because they get given huge levels of subsidies. So I take him through that. The position, it's an African position. He said to me, he said, that's how he said. He says, my son. He called me, you know, I don't know, you know, in an African culture, colleagues from EU, US, when in you ask them, when somebody says, my son, it represents the level of closeness you have with that. He said, particularly when they are not your biological father. He says, my son, you are doing a great job. Now, I'm giving you the full mandate to go and wreck the havoc out of everybody in there. I said, thank you, Honorable Minister. The sad story is that there are people who received similar letters, and I know of one. He gave me a call on Thursday, meaning he may have received, I don't know, the letter on Monday, I don't know. But he gave me a call on Sunday, or on Thursday. Can you believe it? The same people who received the same letter as me, they were recalled and they were taken back to their own capitals? Yes. Same letter. And they asked me, how did you survive? And my minister, that man, I love that man. He said, by the way, I'm going to send you this letter so that you read it yourself. He sent me the original copy of that letter. You know, it's not even allowed in government because the original has to be in the files. He said, I have that original copy in my home country. And each time I look at it, I'm like, boy, gone are the days. I have that already. It has my name in it. To say this, Tsotetsi Makong, he is, taking positions that are standing against the economic interests of that country, and this will have ramifications and repercussions on our cordial economic relations with your country. We do not believe that this official should continue serving in that position. yours truly is here, going for it, you know. So I'm trying to go to what you're saying. Of course, it's about the level of tolerance, how far can you take it? And it doesn't only happen in our own countries, in individual countries, including in the developed countries. Some people who may go against certain economic policies, they can actually undergo a certain deeper level of trouble. So, this is how the treaties are put together, and I think, what was the last question? Because you've lost one. No, you know, I really believe that the way we normally think in a selfish way, I believe we are in processes. These are, imagine if you were a British, no, you were an American, and you know that the US was colonized by the British. Imagine if you were to go and ask those people what hope they have for the US. You go back in those hundreds of years. You see the point? Probably they will say, look, we need to work with what we have right now. And this is what I always encourage us to do. What is it that we have in our hands to work with? Certainly, there are areas where we have capacity to change things around. What my brother from the DRC said about the small and medium enterprises. There are areas where we have what we call policy space. There are areas where we don't have that policy space. And if we maximize that policy space, we'll begin to enlarge it and enlarge it the way China did. They simply looked into their policy space, they began to enlarge it and enlarge it. They were not spending hundreds and thousands of dollars trying to attend the UN conferences, to sit in there and listen and actually knowing there's no impact. Imagine if you were to take a stock of the amount of money African countries spend on foreign travel, buying a ticket, some on business class, and then you get the infamous DSA. $200 a day, $500 a day, depending on the city that you're at. But people are just sitting and saying nothing. After 5 days, they get their DSA and then they go home. They will not have even said a word. They're not going to write a report because the report is going to be written by the secretariat. That's it. No work being done at home, nothing. Why would I spend money over that? Say, oh no, we are protecting the national foreign policy. Do you even have a foreign policy? What if you focus and you take that money, you invest it in building the small and micro? What if you take that money, like one of the things that I'm doing with my colleagues in Women and Youth Division, we are trying to see how can we work with the vocational schools and from there link them to the markets, so that once you have perfected the art of developing or manufacturing a given product, already you have a market, and then we can link them to producer, I beg your pardon, the financiers now. Because the market, we do the matchmaking. Real things that we can do. A few days ago while I was here, and this will be my last comment in addressing what you said, because we're talking about the tangible things. We have also an initiative with the one newly established academy run from Rwanda, and we're with your Minister of Trade, really literally 3 days ago. And in that context, we are trying to see if, for example, the airlines can work with us and they provide discounted rates so that the cargo of the small and medium enterprises can be flown from city to city at a lower rate. Are we together? These are things that we can do, and we have control over them. But if you tell me I have to change the global economic policy, the IMF and what have you, it's desirable, we'll make an effort, But we know that it will take many more years for us to be able to influence that. What is it that we can do now? Let's deal with the small and medium enterprises and create jobs for the people who need them the most. For sure.
Thank you so much, Prof. Actually, I haven't ventured in this area of international economics, so I've learned a lot through your lectures. While I was perusing through the agreement, Article 20, if I'm not mistaken, provides about dispute settlement. And as I've understood it, it's more on member states have a standing on dispute settlement. I was thinking, what about private traders? For instance, a trader from Tanzania want to challenge the decision made by the country, which affects the issues provided by the agreement. Don't you think the treaty will not be effective enough if it does not allow direct access by these private traders? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Makong, for an impeccable and exquisite presentation, of which it has been so inclusive, and I appreciate for that. But I have 3 questions, which are very short and clear. Question number 1 is based on what you expounded in the very first day that you started the presentation. You started by doing a juxtaposition of what the EU members are enjoying in terms of free trade and free movement of people from the member states of the EU. In relation to what it is for the members of the African Union. And you said that the very basement that the AfCFTA made for its establishment, right? So I'm trying to pose the question in this sense that do you think, is there any way or possibility for of which I call them, they are megalomaniacs. They are like, their nature of like controlling Africa and everything, will they allow us to establish such kind of a thing, which is really based, it is enshrined under the rules established under AfCFTA? And my second question is this, you have explained in detail regarding that you were, of course, if I'm not mistaken myself, part of the establishment of some rules of the AfCFTA. And I'm asking, like, is there any consultation, whether it be made inadvertently or indirectly for those EU countries when these rules regarding AfCFTA were being established in the last week? My question is, it's very clear that where there's no continental custom union, as of which it is based in the AfCFTA rules, I've led the objectives of AfCFTA rules, that one of the objectives is to lay a foundation for a continental custom union in Africa. So it is clear that when there's no continental custom union, we find like the national interest of particular countries in Africa are being preserved in terms like those tariffs, they are beneficial to particular countries if they are there. If individual countries, they impose different rates and so forth, like those custom tariffs and taxes. Do you think, have you ever come across this, like discussed when these rules were being established, like it will be maybe a bottleneck in fulfilling the ratification of the rules which are embedded in the spirit of AfCFTA? Did you come across that? That's only. Thank you.
Okay. If there is no other question, I give it to Prof. All right, Prof.
No, thanks a lot for those questions. On the dispute settlement, I don't want to blow my horn, so I'll not talk about myself. As I had said, I was not very happy with the way it was done, but I also, given the experiences that African countries have gone through, including my own country, we are very averse to the question of investor-state dispute settlement. Any one of us in this room, as countries, particularly from the continent. I'm sure you have lost millions, if not billions of dollars to frivolous investors and investments. Not that there aren't actual investments of which investors will have to be protected. Not that, that's not, it is the case that there can be protection of investment. So most African countries, and I've said, I used to preside over the division responsible for investment at the AfCFTA and sit at the podium there and listen to the member states. Majority of them, they don't want investor-state dispute settlement. They're saying it's not necessarily denial of rights to the private actors to litigate against the state. They're saying their investor has to bring their issue through the government of a given country, similar to how it happens in the context of the WTO. So that is the issue. And in fact, there is an annex that is currently under negotiations. It's not being concluded because of this issue. There are countries that are saying we cannot give our consent to the passing of that annex because if it doesn't include investor-state dispute settlement, we are not going to let it get to be adopted. What is emerging as of today is that there is little flexibility on the part of some of the member states who are saying it is okay, we would rather have what they call an opt-in approach, whereby you'll have that particular treaty, particularly the protocol on investment, not dispute settlement, only on investment. That annex, it will include a chapter that allows for investor-state dispute settlement. However, if you want that chapter to apply to you as a country, you have to inscribe your name into it. So it's more like a middle ground. But you see, there are two concepts. Others are saying, yeah, that's okay, but actually we don't want an opt-in. We want an opt-out, whereby you inscribe your name if you don't want to be part of it. You see the point? So I know that the negotiations, once there is a settlement on the idea that you can have investor-state dispute settlement, the issue now would be, is it opt-in, is it opt-out? So that's where we are currently at. So what you are saying is spot on. Some member states, they still feel they need to have that.
So I understood about the investor. What about only to challenge, like the country have made decisions which are affecting, they just want to challenge that decision, particular decision that the government have made?
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So I think I can think of two scenarios. If that company is, there are two ways it could happen. That company can use the national courts to do that. But it will not have recourse to the AfCFTA dispute settlement directly because the government will not litigate against itself. So that's the first thing. But if that company is a foreign company incorporated in that jurisdiction, it can actually make recourse through its home state, which then can raise this issue with the concerned government that would have allegedly infringed its own obligations under the AfCFTA. But for all intents and purposes, it is a state to state, just like the WTO. It's exactly just like the WTO, in as far as all protocols except for investment. But you know that once you have investor-state dispute settlement under investment, which is something that the member states have not really thought through, once we have it under investment, protocol on investment, it means that even if a company is in services, they can, whatever infringement that the government would have undertaken, it can be twisted to fit within the protocol on investment. So you see how once you have investor-state dispute settlement, how it's going to open Pandora's box, because every other section of a sector covered by the rules of the AfCFTA, they can actually matters be raised under the protocol on investment. For me, that's my fear. So in a sense, I see that you want this to happen, that's okay, but it's going to create a bit of a challenge, I think, for the AfCFTA down the road. Already we are seeing the WTO, even without the investor-state dispute mechanism being in place, the WTO is failing simply on the basis of its operating on state-to-state. So there are the countries that trade the more are going to have the most cases. So you can only hope we don't get to have the AfCFTA that goes to the level of the WTO. So I observe, I've never really discussed these matters, but I always observe and fret, and sometimes I don't want to say it, because if I say it, I feel like it's going to complicate matters more. So I said, because I have to be transparent enough, as a public official, I let the member states discuss it. Of course, some of the people, in public know, but I raise these issues with them in private. Because we are not the ones who are negotiating, it's the member states. Of course, we advise, but when it comes, it will come. All right, so will we be allowed to thrive? I'll go back to the fact that we have areas of which there is policy space where we can make certain incremental improvements. Like I mentioned women and youth. I mentioned certain areas such as payments. And I always have to go back to say, it's not them and us. It's not that, according to me. According to me, it's a question of us being in a position to define what are priorities. Most countries don't even know what are their priorities. No study whatsoever on the actual commercial priorities. Not for you to come up and pick up a few areas here and there and say agro-processing. Everybody in the continent, the interest is agro-processing. Of course, it's everybody else's interest. You don't even have to do a study to say agro-processing is your interest. Do you really? Where is a study that looks into manufacturing of microchips? A study on how can a given country be part and parcel of the global supply chains in the auto industry, in electronics. Where are those? Where you get data, you pay millions of dollars to Bloomberg. They get you that data. And you understand who is buying and who are the sellers, who are the OEMs, manufacturers. Where are those studies? You get a consultancy for $6,000, you get a consultant to come and do a study to let, how can $6,000 tell you your economic future for the next 100 years? Come on, what are you talking about? Are you really serious as a country? You gotta put in hundreds and thousands of dollars in determining and developing your economic blueprint in specific sectors. China is doing it. Why are you not doing it? You think that China just woke up in the morning and said that we are going to invest in robotics, we're going to invest in microchip development, invest in electronic vehicles? So just sit back and imagine someone who would say, there's climate change, there's a likelihood that there's going to be a transition from combustion engine. When do you think the Chinese said and then began to think about manufacturing electric vehicles? How much money did they put in understanding how the auto market works? How much money did they input in training people to have skills to be able to play a role in the manufacturing of electric vehicles. No, not in Africa. In Africa, 6,000 can get you your economic development. Where? No. Come on. So there are things that we can do, but not what we get taught in class. You're not going to get that in class. Believe me. There is no academic program in Africa that teaches you on how to make those deep sectoral assessments. Look at areas where there are some Achilles heels for the global supply chains, and where can you plug yourself in? No. Are we together? So we need to do much more. And then the consultations, yes, we always carry out consultations. Sorry? No, we have everybody on board. We consult with everybody. It's not a problem. I speak with Americans, I speak with everybody. Trade is not a political subject in that sense of them and us. And this is what I'm trying to convey. If you want to invest in the auto sector, which are countries that are advanced in the auto sector? US, Japan, Germany, France somehow. You have South Korea as well. Who else? India, they are not there yet. So you have about 5 countries. These are the owners of technology. You get that? You cannot establish an auto industry in your country without you having to collaborate with those countries. It's not possible. Otherwise, we'll have that car of yours. It is facing this way, but it is going that way. We need to understand this, because you are not going to advance unless you have these type of contracts with technology contracts, manufacturing contracts, different types of contracts that apply in that auto industry. Intellectual property as well, services as well. If you are a lawyer and you were to represent a company that wants to invest in automaking, you need to understand all of those. Have you invested in these kind of things? And then, before you know it, we have been told, no, you need to hire local people. They have to be a part of the management. That's the only thing we know, the management. Okay, we'll make you director human resource. Director human resource. And then when you go to the technology, there's nobody there. You see what I mean? So the consultations are there. I don't think, really, we need to politicize trade. Trade is not supposed to be politicized. By the way, I forgot to say one thing. I'll say that one thing and then I go home. So there's been discussions even on customs. No, there hasn't been a good discussion. I saw a paper by UNECA on the customs union, but it doesn't go into what we discussed, unfortunately. Some people just want to justify their jobs, no? Okay. I want to say one last thing and then I conclude. I forgot. Because I heard you talking about these matters with Guy. There is one, this is personal, one big problem with the AfCFTA. Do you realize that, you know that you are talking about the sanctions, isn't it? Niger, Burkina Faso, and others have been sanctioned under the AfCFTA. The African Union. Can you believe it that those countries cannot participate in the AfCFTA because of the AU sanctions? I personally don't understand that. Burkina Faso, Niger, they are also members of the WTO, but they are not sanctioned under the WTO. Imagine if the Security Council of the United Nations was to sanction a country, and then also the WTO sanctions that country. You kill trade on the basis of the politics. I want to leave you with that, to say, this is a personal view. I really think that's not the way trade is supposed to be handled. Because whenever time you get sanctioned, then the sanctions extend to your commercial commitments. And people forget that those commitments are not political commitments, they are commercial commitments. You affect people's jobs, you affect contracts that businesses would have entered into with each other. So imagine the problems that you are creating at the business level. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to be with you here in Arusha. And I know it was a question session, but it's like we extended. But I want to thank you very much, and hopefully we'll catch up in the near future. Please send my regards to Prof.
Thank you very much. We already gave you the flowers, so I'd like now to proceed to a ritual. I'd like to invite, in the book of the Alchemist. You've read the book of Alchemist? So, okay, if you haven't read, then it's your chance to go and read Paulo Coelho, the Alchemist. So I'd like to invite the Alchemist to come and perform the ritual that we often perform when one of the great thinkers is living. So I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Mafia Senkwe to come forward. Professor.
Good afternoon, everybody. I haven't been able to be with you today because I had 4 meetings. Yeah, but the short period of time that I've spent here, I have been impressed, and it gave me appetite what Dr. Makong has said, concluding. It's very serious. I mean, it opens a ground for our studies, and actually I've been dreaming of studying AfCFTA. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to deepen it. It's a vast area, and I'm very happy that we had somebody who is in the system, who is at the same time a thinker for Africa. It was a great pleasure for me to get in contact with you, and I think he knows my secrets so far, because you remember the news I have been giving to you that such and such is leaving, and the ritual Elvis has been talking about. Dr. Makong was here, so he knows all my secrets on that chapter. He knows them so well that I don't know what to tell him now. But in any case, when I was communicating with him during the preparatory period of this academy, he was away somewhere in Ghana. You were in Accra, right? It's only when he arrived here, in the process of our discussion, that he told me, I'm a resident of Tanzania. you know, and well enough, he is a neighbor, and I didn't know. So I'm planning to visit you when you come back. I know you're traveling, but when you come back, I will visit you. Before I do that, I have a short message to send to Mama. First of all, you tell her and tell them that I want to visit them. And before that, there is something here that don't open it. When you see it, please don't open it. Give it to her and she will tell you what it is and what its use is. So don't open it. You promise? Thank you. Thank you. So, I will not tell you what it is, of course, for the sake. You just send it to her. This is my message. Put it there. Next, I'm going to ask you one question. I'm going to ask you one question. Have you ever climbed Mount Kilimanjaro? Uh-huh. You have what?
A bed. Yeah.
All right. When you come back, I will take you to a doctor to heal the knee. And then, I'm asking you this because I have climbed Kilimanjaro. I did this 12 years ago. I went up to the top. And I want you, when the doctor had healed you, I will invite you to come with me so that we reach the top. Now, I did it, honestly, and it's written here. I did it. So keep this in office so that you don't forget that I did it and that we are going to do it. Absolutely. You promise?
Thank you very much.
And then, when are you going back to Accra?
From here, I'm going home in Lesotho. So on the 14th, I'll be back in Accra.
All right, all right. When you go back to Accra, as you are driving your car, make sure that your key shows Tanzania.
Thank you so much.
The car key. So, and when the people in your car ask you why you're using this, tell them that it's because the African Institute of International Law is headquartered in Arusha, and invite them to visit us. Absolutely. You can link them to us, to me, to Elvis, and to the other colleagues, so that we invite them to our next events. Absolutely. If you do that, you will see all my teeth. Today you have seen only the front ones.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, bro. It's been a pleasure to have you. We don't have many experts in AfCFTA. He's one of the rare people who understand this system, and he's one of those rare who can accept to spend his time with us, you know, he has been here every day from Monday to now. We don't take this for granted. You have so many assignments outside of this room, but you have accepted it. And we are making you one of the best contributors of the African Institute of International Law. It will be kept in the record, and you are one of the experts we have in the network of the Institute. We will be in touch on a regular basis. Please don't get tired of me. Don't get tired of us. We still need you, scholars, practitioners, experts, researchers, professors. They need you from all over the world. We're going to be organizing this academy every year. So I hope, apart from our family visit and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I hope that this is not the end. This should be the beginning. Thank you very much. God bless you. Now, I'm sure the participants have a word to tell you before we say bye. I hope you will be with us this evening also. You're not sure. It's fine. It's fine. So the participants have something to say? Someone around here? Very good.
Dear Dr. Makong, on behalf of all of the participants of the 2026 Kilimanjaro Academy on African Union Law and the Public Law of Africa, it is our great honor to express our sincere appreciation for your outstanding contribution to this academy. Through your rich professional experience within the African Union system and your engagement with questions of African integration, governance, and continental institution building, you brought to our discussion something particularly valuable, the perspective of a practitioner who understands not only what African Union law says, but also the institutional realities within which that law must operate. Your contribution helped us appreciate that the development of African Union law cannot be separated from the broader project of African integration. Continental treaties, institutions, and legal principles acquire their true significance when they are understood in relation to the practical challenges facing African states, African institutions, and ultimately the peoples whom those institutions are intended to serve. We have been particularly enriched by the way you connected legal principles with institutional practice. For participants coming from different countries, legal traditions, universities, public institutions, and professional backgrounds, this has provided an important bridge between the study of African Union law in the classroom and its application within Africa's continental and regional institutions. We are equally grateful for the generosity with which you shared your time, knowledge, and experience with us. Your willingness to contribute voluntarily to the Academy reflects a profound spirit of service and intellectual solidarity, and a commitment to nurturing present and future generations of scholars, practitioners, and professionals working on Africa and its institutions. Dr. Makong, as you leave us, you leave behind more than the knowledge shared during your sessions. You leave us with a deeper appreciation of the African integration project and of the responsibility that each of us carries in our different capacities to contribute to making African institutions and African law work for Africa and its people. Please accept this certificate of appreciation as a modest but heartfelt expression of our gratitude. Thank you very much, Dr. Makong.
Thank you very much. Now the rituals of going to the cultural center. Irene, could you please come forward?